All right, I've got 3 o'clock. At this time, I'm going to call the January meeting of the Champaign-Urbana Mass Transit District Board to order. This time I'll ask our clerk to call roll, please.
Barnes,
Here.
Chaplin. Here. Delgado,
Here.
Fasella,
Here.
Hannon,
Here.
Nudo,
Here.
Dial.
Here, thank
Quorum's
you.
present.
Thank you. Take a moment to review our agenda for today's meeting, and I'll ask for a motion and a second to approve.
I move that the agenda be approved as distributed.
I second Margaret's motion.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda for our meeting today. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Audience participation. Seeing none, we'll move on to the approval of our open session minutes from our December 8th, 2021 combined November-December meeting. After your review, motion and a second, please.
I move we approve those.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the open session meeting minutes from December 8th, 2021. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Our board meeting closed session minutes from our combined November-December meeting, December 8th, 2021, have been distributed. Everyone's had a chance to look at those. I'll ask for a motion and a second on those minutes also.
I move that they be approved as distributed.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the board meeting closed session minutes from December 8th, 2021. All in favor? Opposed? That motion carries. Communications, Carl?
I have not received any.
All right. Any board members have anything they want to share? Seeing none, we'll move on to the managing director's report.
Thank you. All right.
I have a question before we could go.
Okay.
Have the hydrogen buses hit the streets yet?
Yes.
Ah.
Yeah, they have been
Every day.
most days. Yeah,
days,
yeah,
yeah. I see them around
There
town.
have been some days that we're still in a process where we're commissioning the station. And so there are some days that we have the buses on site so we can fill them and that kind of thing for the commissioning. And there have been some bugs that we're continuing to work out. So there have been some days that they haven't run, but they've been running since October. Yep. Okay, this is a double month because we didn't have a board meeting in November, so and then the December board meeting is early, so we haven't reported on November or December from the perspective of statistics. So we'll be doing both months today. So first up, we have monthly ridership for November. I'm going to go through November fairly quickly so that we can get into December, which is the more recent month, obviously. In November, we had 678,000 rides, and that was a 142% increase from November of 2020. And the year-to-date ridership was a 125% increase over November of 2020. The monthly operating revenue was 31.8% above November of 2020, and the operating revenue year-to-date was up 22.8%. The monthly expenses were also up, and they were up 12.8%, and the year-to-date were 11.7% above. Year-to-date operating revenues were $278,000 above budget, and the operating expenses were $2,220,000 below budget. So moving on to December. Excuse me, there were 501,000 rides in December of 2021, and that was 134% more ridership than December of 2020. And the year-to-date ridership was up 126%, So, we are recovering from the pandemic in terms of ridership, but as you are painfully aware, we still are operating less than our normal level of service, and so that impacts ridership, and we are still, in fact, in the midst of a pandemic, so that also impacts ridership. But we are getting our way back to some semblance of normalcy. The operating revenue was 23.2% above December of 2020, and the year-to-date revenue was 22.9% above last year. The operating, I think I skipped a chart, didn't I, Tech? Yeah, there we go. Thanks. So this just is relative to what I was saying about our ridership pre-pandemic. You can see that in orange on this chart. In 2019, the December ridership was 873,000. Then last year it was 214,000, and this year it's 501,000. So we're still down 43%, but as I said, that is up 134%. So baby steps. So I think we should be on the operating expenses. Yes, okay. So the December operating expenses were 8.8% above last year, and the year-to-date are up 11.2%. The year-to-date operating revenues are above budget by $395,000, and the operating expenses were $2.6 million below budget. Moving on to some of the notes, I wanted to just reiterate our appreciation for the University of Illinois and OSF and their shield testing, their Safer Illinois testing, the saliva testing that we have on site is just a great resource for our employees, and we've expanded the hours. And we now are letting employees bring family and household members in to be tested there. So that's great. It just opens up the access to testing for a significant number of people on a regular basis. I get tested regularly, and it couldn't be any more convenient. So that's great. And the pandemic continues to impact us, though, and we are back into campus service, but it's a reduced campus service, and going back into this semester, we even reduced it more than what we had last semester. It's a more realistic level. If you recall, in October we had reduced it, but we still ended up having daily reductions as a result of absences in addition to the employee shortage, and so we cut down to that level that we generally have been at on a day-to-day basis, and so that allows us to provide a more reliable service. It's less service, but at least our passengers can see what it is we're supposed to be providing, and we're closer to that level. So that's good. And then finally, I just want to point out that MTD is a founding member of the Hydrogen Fuel Cell Bus Council. And that is a national organization that we have incorporated, and the goal of the council is to promote and advocate for hydrogen technologies specific to mass transit and buses nationwide. And we have almost 20 members at lunchtime. And I happen to be the founding president of the council, and so I'm obviously real excited about it. And the point of doing this is to help the costs come down, because the more people who participate and utilize the technology, that increases the demand, and so that will reduce cost. And quite frankly, that's our goal. So that is kind of exciting, and with that, I will answer any questions that you have through page 61 of the operating notes.
Questions for Carl on his report materials? I'm actually going to have one myself, and I will apologize for not asking you this by email earlier because this may be a difficult question to answer. But for C-carts, are we running full service for C-carts right now?
We are.
Basically, okay. Then for the difference in like the first quarter to second quarter expenses for C-carts, what's the correlation there?
That was mine too.
It's a lot big difference in expenses, and the service is maybe about the same or not, or
You,
I'm
you
sure
were
there's
correct
reason.
with your initial comment that I can't answer that off the top of my head. I don't know if either Michelle or Evan feel like they can, and if not, then we'll get an
Yeah.
answer for you.
Yeah, and I wish I would have seen it before, but
Yeah, this is Michelle Wright, Finance Director. I'm going from memory, which is always a little bit scary, so I'll verify this. But I know that C-Carts had a large adjustment due to a workers' comp reserve. So no actual expense has been paid out, but we know that there's been an amount reserved for a workers' comp incident. Actually, 2 different workers' comp incidents with C-Carts. And so as that reserve number changes, we make the entries to reflect the full reserve. So I think that, I want to say that was around 80,000.
okay, so,
I will say, in addition to that, we also did raise the wages of the C-Cart operators. Did that take place at that time?
Possibly. Evan would know that better, probably.
yeah.
Evan's
So
in our
let's-
tech booth right now, so
Yeah.
he's probably
So we
yelling at the wall.
we can confirm that to the board by email. Go ahead, Al.
Yeah, I had the same questions that Brad did, but I'd like to maybe just schedule something with you independently, just so I get caught up on this to start with, because I don't want to burden time here.
Okay?
But, you know, I didn't see the correlation between, 200 and 220 in the G&A hours, and then the costs seem to reflect what was up in passenger revenue, so maybe just a catch-up time that we could do that.
Yep, we can get something scheduled and we can have a discussion about that.
Bruce, do you have a question?
Yeah, I had a question, Carl. Why is it, I'm looking at page 13, and the peak month of use is October. Builds up to that from September to October, and then slides considerably down to December. But rather uniformly down to September. Then, of course, the end of the year, and by February, it's back up again, and it stays up. Why is that? What's that pattern for dropping?
Well, it does drop after February, so March and April will generally be less
sure. Yeah.
less than February. Here's why. October and February are the only 2 months of the year that don't have any breaks in U of I, in the U of I semester. So there's no spring break, there's no fall break, there's no holiday in those months where there's no campus activity. And so a significant amount of our service, and therefore a significant amount of our ridership, is campus-based with faculty and staff and students. And so on those months, every single day is full service and full ridership.
Yeah. And then Easter is somewhere in March or April.
And spring break is,
Yeah,
yeah, so that's a whole week taken out of campus service. And we have about a 30% drop in our level of service from full service to break service.
Thank you.
Phil?
Thanks. So I had mentioned earlier, I had a constituent that was curious if we having the diversity goals for the construction work on our portion of the yards that we are about to embark on, and if so, where he could find information about that for minority contractors.
So we do have, we have to comply with federal regulations when it comes to disadvantaged business enterprises. And so we have a 3-year goal for DB participation. And that 3-year goal takes into account the projects that we're anticipating occurring during that 3 years. And so we are in year one, and in this 3-year span of time, we knew that the yards would kick off, and so it is included in that 3-year goal. And what we do is we take the anticipated projects and we break them down according to the guidelines on what categories of work can be done by DBE contractors. And then we actually look on the state certified list of DBE contractors and look at how many contractors are available for each of those segments of work. And that's how we factor in the goal. So this period, this 3-year period, we have a 4% goal. That goal is for all projects over that 3-year period. It's not just a project goal related to the yards only. It's for everything that we do within that period. And by the way, I just noted the way that the member of the public that wrote that to you phrased that goal doesn't just apply to the work that MTD is doing. It applies to the project. And so even the mixed use portions of the project that are not just MTD's responsibility will also be utilizing that goal.
Does that include the part that Hans and Core are building on the other side of Locust Street? Or Logan?
Sorry, so when we're using the term the yards right now, we're still just talking about phase one, which is north of Logan Street. And so everything I just said is relative to north of Logan Street. South of Logan Street, MTD won't be involved with in terms of funding. We're a part of the project team, and we are part of the planning group and that kind of thing, but we're not actually funding any of the work south of Logan. And so everything I just said is relative to north of Logan, including the work that Core is doing.
Very good, thank you.
Margaret.
Yeah, I had a question on page 22. In the left-hand chart, the comparison of the operating revenue, there's no data for February. Do we not get any revenue in February?
So this goes back to we had an adjustment that we had to do, and this comes up periodically because this continues to show when we have a look back. But we had an accrual adjustment that we made in the month of February, and so it basically. Michelle, I know you're cringing right now. I can't see you, but I can feel you cringing on my lackluster explanation. So you can tag on and clear this up. But it essentially wiped the books for February because we had to make an adjustment. I think it was for U of I revenue, but Michelle can clarify. But basically, it was just a bookkeeping adjustment. It didn't actually eradicate any revenue. It just realigned the revenue from an accrual accounting basis. Michelle, you want to?
That is almost exactly, completely right. Really what happened is the accrual is always an estimate. And when we were estimating too much revenue too early in the year. And so then we were going to not be able to show any revenue at the end of the year. So to fix that, so it was more in line with the way things really happened, we did this adjustment last February. And that way the revenue for the end of the year was more normal. Otherwise, the revenue would have just been strange the whole rest of the year. So, and I do have confirmation from Nate Warman, our comptroller, who has texted me that I was correct about C-Carts, that there was an $82,000 workers' comp adjustment, and that the wages for C-Carts started, we have an email that it was approved at the end of September. So that's been happening for a couple of months.
Thank you, Michelle. Appreciate it. Anything else for Carl?
Yeah, one quick question, Carl.
Tomas.
Thank you for the update. Wanted to get just a sense of what the operator shortage was at. Has there been any positive movement with hiring operators at this point, or is it still fairly critical?
We still are in a critical situation. There is plenty of positive activity on the hiring and training front, at least as much as we can handle. That is our bottleneck in terms of bringing people on, because we can only train so many at a time, because we only have so much staff available to do the training. So that just takes the time that it takes. But that time is full, and it's at capacity, and so safety and training is doing a great job on that front. Unfortunately, at the same time, we continue to lose people. This term that you hear used a lot, the Great Resignation, primarily what we are experiencing is a great retirement. And so, for instance, I had just sent out a couple weeks ago a congratulatory note that we just had 4 operators retire all on the same day. And so that kind of thing still happens. Not everybody coming through training graduates from training, and so there are plenty of things that are impacting the negative side of the ledger, but we do have positive movement on the positive side of the ledger as well. But right now, our balance is about the same. We have not been able to make any headway. And then in addition to that, Omicron kicked our tail. We had, on many days, we were having 25 to 35 absences a day from COVID positives. And so that was on top of the employee shortage that we already have been experiencing. So fortunately, the number of positives that we've had within our employee base has dramatically reduced over the last week and a half or 2 weeks. So everything that we're experiencing perfectly matches up with the national trends, but it was very impactful.
Thank you.
And I think I recall that the Secretary of State's offices being closed also had some impact on getting people
Certainly
signed up
did,
for
yes, that was a
new
chilling effect.
trainees
It
too.
opened up again yesterday, so that door is back open again.
Anything else for Carl on his report? Seeing none, we'll move on to our next item, which is election of officers for a 1-year term. That's for the chair and the vice chair. According to MTD bylaws, the chair and vice chair positions are elected from the Board of Trustees for a 1-year term at the first regularly scheduled board meeting after January 1st. As previously approved by the board, Jack Waller is the secretary of the board and Amy Schneider is the treasurer. These terms are indefinite until the board takes action to the contrary. The chair position goes first before the vice chair vote. So I will at this time open the floor for nominations for chair. People can nominate themselves or someone else. They do not require a second. And I will accept, and that does not require a second. Are there any other nominations for board chair? Additional nominations for board chair? Are there any other nominations? I've called that 3 times, so I will close the nominations for board chair. We will now take a vote for chair on a roll call. Clerk.
Barnes,
Yes.
Chaplin. Delgado,
Yes.
Vasilla,
Yes.
Hannon,
Yes.
Nudo,
Yes.
Dial.
Abstain. That motion carries. Thank you. At this time, I will ask for nominations for vice chair.
I nominate Margaret Chaplin for vice chair.
Margaret has been nominated for vice chair. Do you accept? She accepts. Any other nominations for vice chair? Additional nominations for vice chair? Nominations for vice chair are now closed. We'll take a vote on the vice chair. Roll call.
Barnes,
Yes.
Chaplin. Delgado.
Yes.
Vasella.
Yes.
Hannan.
Yes.
Nudo.
Yes.
Dial.
Yes, that motion carries. Thank you for Margaret for taking on that chore. Our next action item is the semi-annual review of the closed session meeting minutes. And that information is on pages 62 through 66. And the Open Meetings Act requires that the minutes of closed sessions be reviewed periodically to determine if the need for confidentiality still exists. The last review by the board was July 28th of 2021. Attachment 1 lists all closed session minutes by date that Jack Waller, our legal consultant, local government consultant, recommends should be released. Attachment 2 lists those minutes that Jack would recommend should remain confidential, mostly due to privacy concerns from past workers' compensation cases involving current MTD employees. Statutes permit the destruction of verbatim recordings of closed sessions if they are not less than 18 months old and written minutes have been approved. Attachment 3 is a list of those closed meetings that meet that test and should be destroyed. And that will be our motion to follow our local government consultant's recommendation. Is there a second to that motion? It's been moved and seconded to destroy the pertinent closed session meeting minutes and release those minutes per our local government consultant's recommendations. Roll call.
Barnes.
Yes.
Chaplin.
Yes.
Delgado.
Yes.
Vasella.
Yes.
Hannan. Nudo.
Yes.
Dial.
Yes, that motion carries. Our next item is our leasing services agreement, and we'll leave that to Jane Sullivan.
Okay. We have a leasing services agreement that expires at the end of the month. We go through a competitive bidding process for that agreement. And so we just finished up that process. We received 2 proposals and we're recommending award to the lower bid, which is Chelsea Financial Group. This will be a 2-year agreement. We have done 2-year agreements for this service for, this will be our second time doing a 2-year agreement, and then for many, many years before that, we had 1-year agreements. To give you an idea, of the type of equipment we typically lease, some of the leases we have going on right now are a floor scrubber, a minivan, a maintenance truck, a larger a tow truck. And then in the past, we've leased some of our ADA paratransit vans. We've leased servers, a forklift, a tractor. So just to give you an idea of what kind of stuff we're talking about here. And so this allows us to use our downstate operating assistance program for those leases. And we did receive a 3rd proposal this year, but they were late. So we couldn't open it, but we are happy with the 2 that we received, and we're ready to recommend award. Any questions?
Questions for Jane on this item? It's my recollection that one of the nice things about this is if we have a piece of equipment that we lease for a couple of years, we like it, we're able to have the option to purchase that piece of equipment. And if it's something that we find that we're not happy with, then we're able to basically walk away from that and find something else so it works to the MTD's advantage to have this in place, correct?
Correct.
Awesome. Other questions? Any questions? for Jane? Seeing none, go ahead, Phil.
Oh, just wanted to make sure I understood this. So are we doing, does the term of the lease that we're entering into depend on the piece of equipment? Is that sort of why there's 3 options?
We always do a 36-month lease. We wanted the option of doing a lease for a shorter period of time, but we always do a 36-month lease.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'm sorry, so if I understand what Phil was saying, we have one lease that covers everything we lease, not one for the truck and one for the forklift and blah, blah.
We have a master lease agreement that lasts the 2 years of the contract period. And then any lease that's brought on during that 2-year period has what they call a schedule, and that lasts for 36 months. Does that answer? Okay.
Additional questions on this item? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion and a second to approve our lease agreement.
I move that we approve this leasing services agreement.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the 2022 through 2024 leasing services agreement. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. That was our last action item. Our next meeting will be Wednesday, February 23rd, 2022 at 3 o'clock right here at the Illinois Terminal. At this time, we will be adjourning to closed session to consider the employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of a public official, immediately followed by adjournment. There will be no further business, and we will not be returning to open session. I'll ask for a motion and a second to move to closed session.
So moved.
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded to move to closed session to consider an employee issue. Roll call, please.
Barnes,
Yes.
Chaplin,
Yes.
Gatto,
Yes.
Pusella,
Yes.
Hannon,
Yes.
Nudo,
Yes?
Dial.
Yes, we are adjourned from open session and we will reconvene in 5 minutes.